What's going on, y'all? It's King Leo. Listen, what I want to do is kind of go over some of the strategies that you can take when you're dealing with a collecting agency who is like basically coming for everything you have, right? I have a client who has a situation right now, that's crazy. It's like she has a real estate property where she moved out of, and now they're charging her like 60 grand almost for the rental. Now, if you're not familiar with the scams and schemes that they have with real estate and stuff like that, and I'm not talking about like just like buying a house, I'm talking about renting. So a eviction can affect your credit. A collection account from a location where you live can affect your credit. So I did a video on how to remove evictions, but this particular case is a collection, okay, from a real estate transaction. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start from scratch, right? This is a brand new situation. It literally just got added to her account this month. A little bit before this month, the account was open, but it reported on her credit report in August. So we're going to do this together. So that way, if you have a collection account with real estate, you'll be able to do something about it. If you know somebody who has an account with that, like a crazy collection, because when I break this stuff down, I'm going to give y'all the laws. I'm going to give y'all the way to handle it, the methods, everything. We're going to go over all of that today, okay? So make sure you have a pen and paper. You could always pause, rewind, and stop the video if you need to, because it is a lot to digest. But yeah, I just want you guys to have an idea on, how to pursue these type of situations. Like you should not be victimized by the location that you chose to live at. Now, I get it. People don't have the money, you're not able to pay the rent and things like that. And so that's why they have things in place to wherein they get you out the property. Right now, even if you damage the property, let's say you messed up the couches, I mean, not the couches, that's your furniture, but you messed up the walls, the painting, the doorknobs, things like that. Those charges are actually deducted out of your security deposit. Now, what they do, and a lot of people are unaware of this, is they trump up those charges. Okay, so where a typical, let's say a doorknob would be $10 at Lowe's, they're gonna say it was 50, right? And then you might say, well, is that legal? And then it's like, well, if they pay $50 for it, then yeah, it would be legal. But my thing is, are they intentionally going above what your security deposit is just so that they could get that additional money? Or here's a better question. When the property was, returned back to them, did you inform them of what was needed? Because normal wear and tear is not something you should be charged for. Think about it. You lived at that residence for however long. So of course the walls are not going to be as clean as they was when you first moved in. Of course the floor is not going to be as clean as it was when you first moved in. If there's no fire damage, like no broken windows and things like that, then those charges should not even be on your statement. Now, I went over that with you guys because you have to know what position you're in as a consumer on all spectrums. Okay, being a consumer is different from being a customer. And I teach you guys that in the school community. Like you got to know the difference because a customer does not get the same treatment as a consumer. They always say the customer's always right. That's what we hear. But the problem with that is, then what does that mean about the consumer? See, I'll tell you the difference. The customer is the person that pays for the item being sold. You're the consumer. You're the one paying for an item to use it. So when we talk about the credit industry and we talk about these debt collectors, the collection agencies are working with the credit bureaus. Okay. They are working with them. That's common sense, right? But here's the thing. That's who they consider to be their customers. Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, their customers are the debt collectors, are the banks, right? That's not you. You're the consumer. Now, the thing that you need to understand about being a consumer is that means you got all the power. Okay? You have all the power. And I know you've probably heard it a bunch of times before, but don't worry. We're going to go over that today. Okay? So I just wanted to kind of warm y'all up, let y'all know what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be, hopping on and off camera, sharing my screen, not sharing my screen, just to keep it engaging. But I want to make sure y'all know exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it. All right? So let's get rolling. So here's this account. We have property. I guess that's going to be property receivables. But they're not even reporting a full name there. And then it says the original creditor is Tricon Residential. Now, if you're not familiar with them, that is a property management company who basically rented the property out. I'm assuming, right? to this client, and now they basically sold the debt to this debt collector. Now, before I go in here and kind of like just debunk this whole account, the thing I want y'all to understand is there is no way that a rental property, okay, where you were living could have a balance of $57,000 if the house is still standing. Did you burn the house down? Right? Like $57,000. So just understand that alone. Okay. That's more than my client's car. Okay. That alone lets you know that there's something fishy about this. Now, let me show you something else I want you to pay attention to. They're saying that it's a collection account and that it has a derogatory status. And it says that the date that it was open was June 17, 2025. But this one says June 1st, 2025, and this one says June 1st, 2025. So that's, about 16 days, 2 weeks off, but it's still in the same month and still in the same year. So that, you can't say that's inaccurate. Everybody has their own reporting time. So that's still in alignment. But here's what's interesting, that it says high credit, 56,320, but balance is 57,670. Now, high credit would be basically mean the highest it ever got, right? Like that's the highest credit that you had or highest balance that you had to pay down and things like that. But this is a real estate property. This is a rental. So they're treating it as if it was a credit card. Are you seeing how that works? So it's like you charged off the balance and sold it and made whatever you made on it as a profit. But then at the same time, now here's where you guys dropped the ball at. So it says date of last activity, August 31st of 2025. But this one says June 1st of 2025. Well, that's interesting because this one says August 1st, 2025. But if we look at the date that it was opened was June 1st and the last activity date was June 1st. So wait a minute, how does Experian have that, but TransUnion says something different? Now, for somebody that doesn't know, that alone is grounds to get this account deleted. But unfortunately, because it's so much, we're not going to be able to just say, hey, you messed up the date and they're just going to delete it. And I think when we send out dispute letters with templates and stuff like that and just roll a dice and hope, typically you don't really get the results you're looking for because you don't have enough facts. You don't know how to compile it. But that's why we're here today, ladies and gentlemen. So the first thing we want to do, okay, is we want to take a screenshot of this. Okay, we want to capture that. Okay. Property receipt. So here it is right here. And one thing that I always dealing with in regards to disputes, so I like to look them up. Property receivables. Here they go. Look at this. Okay. Look at this. They in Renton, Washington. And here's the address, 981 Powell. See, so we need to collect that address, all right? You can write it down, copy it. I'm going to just copy it to my notes. You guys are seeing this from scratch. This is a situation of, obviously, we'll be able to see the results come next month. But at the same time, this is a ongoing process. And, as good as I am, I would love to say it'll be taken off in 1 month, but that's not normally the case just because, think about it, it's $57,000. They're not going to just lay down for you, okay? So the law is the law. And regardless of what they want to do, they have to obey the law, okay? So we're going to take this address first because you got to know where they located. And because I'm working on the behalf of my client, I also have, her identification and her proof of residence and stuff like that. So you're going to need that when you're disputing due to the fact that you have to verify the client or yourself. Okay, you definitely need to verify them because that's an excuse for them not to take action. Okay, so property receivables is the company. And then look, 2 years later, false claim. Like people are already talking about how bad this company is. So I just got a call last month, September 2023, from a debt collector saying I owe $6,000 to this apartment complex I used to live in 2021, 2 years later. Okay, 2 years later. And so this is what they typically do. Let me get back on camera for you guys. This is what they typically do. They typically just keep getting people with the same kind of, mechanism, all right? So what I want to show y'all now, we got the company, we got the account. So what do you think the first thing we need to do? Uh-huh. The first thing we need to do is we need to find out what laws were broken. Okay. And I teach you guys the laws all the time, but what we will go to is Lauren Carnell, or if you don't have access to the internet or anything like that, you could always just go purchase the book. There's a book, the United States Code book, and it'll give you all of it. All right. So what we're looking for is the US Code. So we're going to click on that. And then we're going to title 15, Commerce and Trade. Then we're going to go to Chapter 41. All right. Chapter 41 is Consumer Credit Protection. This is like everything you need to know about credit. This is your truth in lending for like vehicles and different properties and stuff like that. This is for credit cards, auto loans. This is for all of that. Okay. Debt collection practices is where we need to be. Now, I'm going to show you what law they violated just by them purchasing the debt from the Tricon, but they're trying to collect from the client as if they're working with Tricon. Now, I know it sounds weird. If Tricon hired them, quote unquote, then that would mean that Tricon is still collecting the funds, right? Let me stop sharing. I want to get personal with y'all because this is important. So if Tricon sold, right, they sold the debt, that means they have nothing else to do with it. They sold it, right? So if they sold the debt to this debt collector, and now this debt collector has paid a price, Tricon has written the debt off as a charge-off, which basically now they get to take that $57,000 and write it off on their tax return. So that's technically like income, right? For you, you're supposed to get a 1099 fee, which is a cancellation of debt, okay? And then lastly, they're supposed to have a zero balance on a on a charge-off account. If it's charged off, it's supposed to be a zero balance. So here's what they did. The law that they broke is called false and misleading. Okay, it's a false and misleading trap, and I'm going to show y'all that. I wanted to show my face so I could tell y'all what that was. So here's the trap right here. So with 1692E, false or misleading representation, a debt collector may not use any false, deceptive, or misleading representation or means in connection with the collection of any debt, without limiting the general application of the foregoing. The following conduct is a violation of this section. The false representation or implication that the debt collector is vouched for, bonded by, or affiliated with the United States or any state, including the use of any badge, uniform, or concealed thereof. The false representation of the character amount or the legal status of any debt, or any service rendered or compensation which may be lawfully received by the debt collector for the collection of the debt. So to summarize, because I know when we get into these laws, they get tricky, you don't really understand them. So I'm going to summarize it like this. When they're trying to attempt to collect the debt from you, they're making it seem like they're collecting it for Tricon. But that's a lie. Tricon is not trying to collect no more. So that's false and misleading. You don't have a contract with the debt collector. You never have a contract with the debt collector. But they'll tell you that they were assigned the case. They will tell you that they are working with the company that you had to deal with. And if you don't know no better, you're just going to comply. But the truth, ladies and gentlemen, is that they actually know exactly what they're doing. That's false and misleading because they don't have exact knowledge. They don't have any documentation that you signed agreeing to pay them. And so those are the grounds we're going to start this dispute out with. Okay. Now, another thing I want to show y'all is a lot of people are unaware of this, but this is like my secret sauce. Let me share my screen a little bit. It's called the affidavit of truth. Okay. So the affidavit of truth, is basically having a notary notarize a document stating that they reviewed the facts, that they see the violations, and now the company that's in question has to respond. According to the law, if they don't respond to a statement of truth affidavit within 30 days, it is automatically a default judgment. You see, a dispute is not the same as an affidavit because the affidavit is legally binding in court, right? It is actually us able to go into a courtroom, show a judge that we, were disputing the case, and we showed them our proof, and we sent in a notarized affidavit, and they did not take action. Automatic dismissal, automatic default judgment for the plaintiff, right? For us, that's disputing this stuff. Because I know my client is definitely in need of being able to get that $60,000 or that $57,000 off her credit. All right, so let's get back to it. So now that we know, okay, I know the law you violated. I got the proof that you violated it. I have my affidavit of truth. The next thing I want to show y'all is this. Okay, let's look something up real quick. I'm going to show y'all something. All right, let's look up this. What is the definition? All right, what is the definition? And I know it, but I want to show y'all of identity theft. Watch this. Identity theft, the fraudulent acquisition and use of a person's private identifying information, usually for financial gain. I'm going to read that one more time. The fraudulent acquisition and use of a person's private identifying information, usually for financial gain. So I think sometimes when we think about identity theft, we only think that, a person, right, like a human being stealing someone else's identity, right? That's kind of like in a nutshell how everybody treats identity theft. But the truth of the matter is anybody could be liable for identity theft. Anybody could be, prosecuted for identity theft. So for example, if a company, watch this, if a company acquires your personal private identifying information without your permission and then use it for financial gain, isn't that identity theft? If company A takes your information and sells it to company B, then company B comes to you to collect money from the debt. You never signed anything with company B. You never gave company A permission to do that. And the information that company B got is unverified because they're supposed to contact you before even putting anything on your report. That's identity theft. And so a lot of people just do the identity theft claims just because, but not knowing why they're actually doing it. Well, that's why. If you did not sign anything, you did not give permission, they do not have a right to have your personal information, and they do not have a right to report it. So I wanted to show y'all that because with this debt, we're going to have to take a few steps. And so I'm going to show y'all these steps that we have to take. And like I said, y'all going to see it like fully laid out. This is going to be a few parts to this. This is part one. So this is all about what we're going to do. Part two is going to be us actually doing it. And then part three will be basically the results of what we did. So it's going to be a 3-part series to this. Okay. So we see the law. We see it's 15 U.S.C. 1692E, false and misleading representation. So we know that's the law that we're going to be using. We know that it's an identity theft claim as well because they stole this young lady's information and now they're trying to collect for financial gain without her permission. And then we also have our affidavit, a statement of truth. So that way, when we send in our dispute, we have all of the legal binding documents we need to make our dispute official. They cannot ignore it. They cannot send one of those stall letters saying that everything looks verified and things like that. All right. So you could even take it a step further by actually filing an attorney general complaint. But I don't typically do that complaint first because I want to build evidence. I want to show them that we've been trying to work with them, that we've sent in multiple disputes and things like that. So that way you build up all of that evidence for if you have to go to court, you have what you need. All right. So the next thing we need to do is we need to prepare our identity theft claim. We're going to have to prepare that. And it's a simple process. You can just go to identitytheft.gov and get started with that. I'm going to save that for part two on what we're going to put inside of the identity theft claim and how we're going to do it and what we're going to do it for. And then we'll start the dispute because We know exactly what we're going after. We know the company's address. We know the debt. We know the laws they violated. We got all our ducks in a row. So I see you for part two, so that way we can start this dispute.